Welcome, everybody. You know, it is the third Thursday. It is time to talk with the Soul Journey Doula, which is Lea Brovedani. And I encourage you to go to our website, souljourneydoula.com. This is a show where we talk about end of life planning and all things end of life. And we often find humor because we must. It's a serious topic, but it's something that we all go through at some point in life. But today we're actually going to deal with fear of death because that's a very real thing. I think when any of us think about death, we're either like, it'll happen when it happens, or there's that, I'm scared of dying. What happens to me? Then there's the fear. And it's like it can cause anxiety. And even if you've been given like, hey, you're going to live for X amount of time, that's scary. And it's not just scary for those of us who are on our way out, or I'm not one yet. Hopefully, I'm not ready. I have a fear of death, but for those around the loved ones. So fear kind of is part of it all. And then there's a point where you have to have acceptance, I think. So, Lea, welcome back. Are you ready to talk about fear?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting because I think everyone
Look how
thinks death is
excited you were
something.
about that. I'm like, dude,
We think it's something that's going to happen to someone else, not us. Yeah, I know. I've heard that everybody has to die, but that doesn't mean me.
mm, right, right.
I think there's that thing. And because the medical industry has been able to prolong life, like before, if you got ill, you knew that there was kind of a timeline. And now we keep extending life, extending life, extending life. And I think we just don't think that we have to deal with it anymore.
Mm, right.
Make
So,
us a little weirdly scared about the whole thing.
well, there's people that are into immortality, and I just interviewed Dr. Marshall Runge about this, and he's one of our Big Blend radio experts, and he is a doctor, a cardiologist, also works at the University of Michigan in medicine there, and he writes medical thrillers. He's a wonderful, sweet, kind man, yet he likes to kill people off in medical thrillers. But he told me yesterday while we were recording that there's a group of people, very rich, right, that think that because of all the technology and all the advancements we have, that they can stay immortal, possibly. So they have what's called ice farms, and they're frozen.
Cryogenics, isn't that what it was called?
I
Cryogenic?
think, but it's like, yeah, but basically their head comes off. So their head and their body is in two, and so they're frozen, and they in 50 years they hope technology is there to be put back together again.
Okay. Now that's a little strange.
I know, I just thought I'd bring that up because
Yeah.
we're always normal on this show, right? So so but anyway, so immortality is something, oh, we want the fountain of youth, but it is scary when you think I mean, we that fear of death is part of survival for our bodies, right? Like if we do something, it's like, oh no, or if someone almost hits you, and when you're driving, you know
Yeah.
that death is there. So that fear is part of our survival instincts. But then there's that moment where we have to go, okay, this is going to happen now.
Yeah. And for so many, we put it in wording that is like, you have to fight this, it's a battle, don't give up and everything. So we see death as
Oh,
defeat. And so when you're talking about dying, it's no longer this natural process that happens to everyone. It's you've lost the race against time and you've been defeated. And I hear this thing about cryogenics, and I think so. Unless you're going to bring all of my friends and family and my dogs with me, I don't personally, I don't know if I want to wake up where I
frozen?
don't know anybody in another time where I'm out of place. Like, that doesn't sound like fun to me.
But for others, it is. It's like how
Yeah.
we all have different things we want to do, before we pass. And I just interviewed a lady about Sandra Borstein about travel and grief, and her husband has recently passed. He's been passed for a year, and she realized when he died, and she had, knew he was dying. He was given 12 to 14 years, I mean months, and then lasted longer, um, which was great for them. And they traveled and did everything, but to suddenly stop was something she couldn't. She needed to keep going to get out of the comfort zone of, living with. She says, some people in grief will basically roll up in a ball and kind of just stop everything. And for her, that was not a way for her, but everyone's in a different spot. So when you're dying, I feel like there's that weird balance too. Like they had to make decisions together, knowing that he's going sooner. I mean, he was very young when he died. Um, so that's a hard thing to know. And then it happens, and then switch gears, and it's odd. It's hard. So I wonder about that. If you're going to be upset I mean, that's a freaky thing, but then at some point you have to go, okay, I accept this is what's going to happen. Now, what am I going to do between, you know, those
Yeah.
months?
And not everybody, like you said, everybody handles it differently. Not everybody is afraid of dying. Some people are excited about like what's next. Is there, like in every religion, there seems to be kind of a different perspective. Some people believe, some religions, it's reincarnation. Some people believe that, there's a heaven and hell and you're going to go to one place or the other. Other people believe that you are back to the place that you were in before you were born, which is kind of a neutral never place. So I think the fear goes along with what your beliefs are, what you believe will happen to you. And for some people, the fear is because they have some regrets. They haven't done everything that they want to do. Everybody has this hope that, when you check out all of those relationships that were a little rough are somehow healed, and all of the things that you had put off, either you've done them or they're no longer important to you. So there's so many different aspects of it. Is it the fear of the unknown?
Mm.
Or is it the fear of not having done everything that you wanted to get done?
Mm. Yeah, that's hard when you think
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
It's fear could be even of pain, of what's it going to feel like.
Yeah. And everything that I have learned in all of the research and the courses I've done and talking to other doulas and people who have spent time with, like friends of mine who have witnessed 300 deaths, said death in itself is not painful.
Mm.
The disease that is causing the death can sometimes be painful, and there is medication to control that pain. But the actual dying process is not painful. So it depends. Like, what are you afraid of? And what have you got left to do? And I'm going to ask you this, right, Lisa?
Uh-oh.
What is it that, if you said, Lisa, you've got 3 months, what is it that you're going to spend with, as was it Mary Oliver who said, with your last precious moments?
What am I going to
How are you
do?
going to spend your last precious moments? What would
In
you want?
nature. Absolutely in nature. It has to be in nature with wine and music.
Okay.
So,
Where
I think,
would you be back in Africa?
yeah, I think I'd maybe go somewhere new, but yeah, I'd probably go back to Africa because it's just so, it's everything. But, I think I'm kind of living it, like, kind of living what I want to do so much that I'm kind of like, when I was a kid, I kind of kept logs of stuff. Like, if I died now, you know, would I be happy? Always looked at that. Would I be happy with what
Yeah.
I've accomplished, what I've experienced? And for many years, I do that even on my birthdays. I always go like, well, you're still here. Are you happy with what you've done? Do you need to pick up your boots and do something new? Are you learning? Are you, have you accomplished goals? And I'm pretty happy. I'd love to be a multimillionaire, but
What would you do
honestly,
differently?
it, I wouldn't do anything differently because I don't sell out to stuff
Yeah,
to
it,
make
it might just be
it's
a bit more of an ease. You wouldn't have to worry about,
as long
the
as you
heart
pay your
breaking
bills.
down or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, as long as you can pay your bills and do your basics, as far as I'm concerned. Be comfortable, be able to afford some niceties in life, right?
Yeah,
Um, that's it. You want to be able to
yeah,
afford travel. That's where all our money goes into, is travel.
yeah, yeah,
And I think that if you keep looking at that way, it takes the fear out of it if you're actively working on it. Does that make
yeah.
sense?
Yeah, and I think the whole thing about nature too. I mean, since we moved to the house in Nova Scotia, we've got 2 acres of land, and most of it is forest. And
Mm.
the other day, like I realize how much um, my anxiety quietens when I walk into the
Oh.
forest.
Mm.
So fear and anxiety to me kind of are a lot of times they're linked together. And I wonder if our disconnect with the natural world, where death is part of the natural world and we kind of accept it, we've pushed death so far away and made
Hmm.
it so it's now a medical intervention that we forget that we are connected to the world.
Absolutely. That's why I like fungus,
Yeah,
and all, well, nature is a really good teacher. Like you talk about that, and energy never dies. And that's the other part. Like to me, throw me out in the ocean. If a shark eats me and they think it was delicious and I benefited the shark, well, good. Now, if my body is bad for a shark, don't do it. Like, don't feed me to the shark. But whatever happens, I want it to go in, like you want to compost and all of that, right? I'm
yeah,
exactly the same way. I want to, not my energy to be good when it goes, because I want it to be able to recycle and be used because energy never dies if it's done correctly. Let's do it right, But in nature, we see absolute beauty. And that's a lesson in Africa is the more beautiful it is, the more dangerous it is, right? So the most beautiful snakes are the ones that will kill you in 5 seconds, right? Like if you get bitten, well, she gone. You're dead. So you learn, so this fear, but you have to live within a place. And if you love nature, walk in the places where there's snakes. You know, I walk dogs all the time and I walk in areas where there's copperheads and rattlesnakes and all kinds of things. And there's a good dose of fear that is on my shoulders. It's protective. And you need to, if you connect with nature, it just creates awareness and you don't have time for fear. You have to have trust in yourself. You have to trust yourself. You're going on another trip, right? You're going here. If something happens, be aware, don't panic. The fear and anxiety is a, a reaction of fear. That's all
yeah,
anxiety is fear. And I everybody has a different level of it according to what is making them anxious. I have a friend that every Sunday she starts getting anxious because she has to go to work on Monday and she's all panicked. She's not going to do the best job. Yet she works her butt off. And I always look at her, I'm like, why would you be panicked? Let's go through everything you do. Then she's fine. But it's just, it's a conscious fear. So I don't know. I think nature, you see things die all the time. I mean, we'd watch wildlife, you go photograph, a beautiful gazelle, and then a lion comes and kills the gazelle, and you're watching this and you are photographing it. You know, some people are horrified. And then there's us who go, man, it's amazing how fast that lion is. It's amazing how this life and death happens so fast, but the gazelle's feeding the lion and maybe a whole pride. So it's just the way nature works, man. We're going to go down at some point, period.
yeah. One of the things that I do as part of like working as a doula, and it's called the best 3 months. And it's imagine that you were given a diagnosis that you had 3 months to live.
Hmm.
It right where you are now. You're not going to be hit by a bus. It's not going to be something like that, but you are as healthy as you are now. You've got this diagnosis. So how are you going to spend those last 3 months?
Mm.
And we go through a process where, and you've seen it on my site, those 5 different pillars. And I go through all of them with, and I did this with a friend of mine who has a heart condition. And so we did the best 3 months, and that caused her so much fear and anxiety because she does have to think on a pretty regular basis that she's got some health concerns and things could happen. What we discovered going through this is that when she could take control and say, okay, so this is how I want to spend my last 3 months. These are the people that I want to spend my last time with. This is where I want to be when I take my last breath. Here's the music I want played during the final weeks or whatever. Here's the view that I want to see. And at the end of it, here's what I want to have happen to my body. So all of a sudden, because for her and for a lot of people, the fear is losing control. Like, I can't tell you how many people have said that one of their biggest fears about dying is losing control of their bodily functions.
I was gonna say that would be like, yeah, I don't
Pooping.
want someone having to pick up my, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so when you actually say, okay, so here's what's going to happen, and here's what we can do to control it. And just for all of those people who have poop fears, if it's an illness, usually that's a function that quits working.
Yeah. You're already
So
there.
yeah. And if it's really a problem, and a lot of times it's not the fact that someone has to help them, it's someone that they love and know might have to help them. They don't want their wife or their partner or their spouse or whatever to be changing their diapers. So you have to really get to a point. Are you really afraid of death, or are you afraid of all of the indignities that happen to our body through the dying process?
And that's all societal stuff.
Yeah.
That we created, right?
Yeah.
When we were cave people, we didn't care. And you got to think too, animals, when we lived in Kenya, the dogs got parvovirus a lot. And so, we were it was a different era, and that's what was going on. And you could tell if your dog got parvo because they would literally go look for a bush to go lie under the bush. And what they were doing was, we're going to die now. They kind of took themselves on a death journey. And we could recognize, parvo. You see a dog going under a bush, parvo, get him to the vet, get him. So it's interesting because animals kind of want to do it alone. They don't want the fanfare. But then there's rituals. Like, look at elephants. They mourn. I mean, there's these stories that come out with that. So dying, though, it's sometimes people just want to be alone, maybe. I don't know. Everybody may be different with that. Have you come across it when people really look at this going, I'd rather just be alone? I mean, have you heard of that? Or do people really want people around?
What my experience is that people want people they want around. They just don't want people around. They
Yeah.
want specific people around. So it's, I've
You
talked to
don't
people.
want rubberneckers.
Yeah, well, I've talked to people and they said, oh, for God's sakes, don't let so-and-so in, because all they want to do is sit next to my bed and cry. I don't want to have to comfort them. I'm dying. Like,
Yeah.
off.
Yeah.
So they want specific people.
Yeah.
And there's beautiful rituals that you can do and have the whole family participate. So it takes so much of the fear of death is just fear of the unknown, fear
So,
of not knowing what's
yeah.
going to happen.
I think also biblically, we've been had like, you're going to go to hell or heaven thing is also
That's a very
created fear.
Christian, yeah, that's a Christian concept. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm not knocking it. It's just
Yeah.
there's this deep, fear of that. And, so you can work through that too. Your 30 days, I think, is brilliant, because if you're worried that you've, done something where you may be going to hell, you better talk to somebody, who represents, your beliefs and can help you maybe get forgiveness somewhere or something. So because everybody's got a different belief, a religious belief and view, and that's something that's very important to people. So to me, that's important to look at. And the 30 days is a good plan, because you're taking
Actually, three
action.
months. If you look
Oh,
at
I mean,
that's
sorry.
3 months.
Yeah, 3 months, because that gives you time, right? But it also gives you're taking action. It's when you're not taking action that fear really will swelter,
Yeah.
you know? Like, if you get in an argument with someone, women want to get it over with. Otherwise, if someone kind of just leaves them hanging and you're arguing with someone, it drives you bonkers. That's when we start cleaning the kitchen and stuff. It's like you need it to be done and over with, and it doesn't work that way. Guys can walk off of stuff. I don't know, but for women, we tend to have, you know, I know it's different for everyone, but you want to go to bed knowing you can go to bed. Otherwise,
Yeah.
we don't sleep,
You
you
want to
know?
have it resolved and
Yeah. So if
like,
you're sitting and there's nothing happening to resolve something, we start to get impatient as women
yeah.
emotionally.
So, we're talking about the fear of death.
Hmm.
And I'd really like to challenge people to start asking themselves, well, what is it about death that I'm afraid of? Because like once you're dead, it's done.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's no more worries and things. Um, so is it around your family? Like if you've got a family, or are you afraid that someone's not going to they're not going to be taken care of? Financially, are you afraid that,
Mm.
things aren't in a place? Like, I know that that's a big fear. It's not the fear of death. It's I'm the main bread earner. If I'm not here, what's going to happen to my family?
That's huge.
Yeah. So really figure out what is it that you're afraid of? And, what's going to happen to my body? Well, you can have that all arranged.
And I don't have to go on diet anymore.
Go on diets.
No, not really.
Yeah,
No, I just
we
try to
die,
say,
like
okay, I won't
neither of
have
us really
pizza
go on
tonight.
diets. We
I,
eat something and go, man, I shouldn't have eaten that whole thing.
I don't care.
Yeah.
Just, you know what? Because I've lost so many people that were healthy, super healthy, and they died too young, like way so young. And I look at that and I'm like, okay, well, screw it. you know, they didn't do this, they didn't do that, they did everything healthy, and they just upped and died, of natural things at a very young age. And I go, well, that didn't serve them. So I think
Yeah.
I can still have my wine and my cake, but
You know,
obviously in
and I
moderation.
think
Obviously in
all,
moderation.
yeah,
Yeah.
people who, I was thinking of an old boyfriend of my daughter's and his parents, really great couple, very, very successful. He was cardiologist and they had a savings and everything set up for retirement
Mm.
that would be the envy of anybody. Like they could live a really good life. And everybody has heard these stories. She ended up like 3 months into retirement, got cancer and died. So I don't for a moment think that you shouldn't plan for retirement. I think everybody should, because the last thing you want to do is have years left past your paycheck.
Yeah.
So, but it doesn't mean stop enjoying yourself now.
No,
So if
not at all.
things that you want to do, figure out how you can do it within the parameters of your life as it is right now.
Hmm.
And maybe take some of that fear away.
Fear sucks, even
Yeah.
though it's a necessity. Like I said, it's part of our survival instincts.
Yeah.
And anxiety comes if you're not taking those steps like you're talking about.
Yeah.
Anxiety comes, and you have to walk through the fear for the anxiety to go away. You know, that whole thing about hug the monster, it helps. You know, sometimes just face your fears. You know, I go walking in woods where I know there's copperheads. I'm
Yeah.
still here. It's
And
made me more aware.
they strike just when they are caught unawares, and
Hmm.
when you step on one, they don't like that.
Yeah, because you scared them too, you know.
Yeah.
So it's, and they really can hear your footprints and things. So, but it's about being aware.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's what I think it is. If you're walking in the forest, like, where you lived in Savannah, right? In Savannah, you go out in the swampy areas and you're walking in a nature area and you're just looking at your phone, as a lot of people tend to do. You could step on a snake and get bitten, and it's not the snake's fault. You should be aware of each other. And
Yeah.
you know, that's the thing. And you are in the snake's territory, kind of. We've taken enough animal territory. But
Yeah.
anyway, but people want to kill snakes all the time. I'll post a photo of a snake and people are like, the best snake is a dead snake. And I'm like, no, they are really good for the environment. And if you want a bunch of rats around, don't have any snakes.
Yeah. Yeah. I
They,
know that in Savannah, someone was the complex that we're living in, someone was freaking out because they found a snake in the hallway, and it was like a rat snake. It wasn't one that
yeah,
would hurt
you
you.
want
And
them.
I went,
Yeah, cool.
that means, first of all, I mean, you should be more worried that it's trying to find food in the hallway than finding the snake in the hallway. The
Yeah.
fact that it was there means that there's food for it. So, but if you don't see it, having the snake is kind
Mhm.
of a good alternative.
I remember when Nancy and I, we were, doing our tour, still traveling like we do now, and we needed to stop for a couple years. And a friend, because she's in the hospitality and she's like hospitality world, and she knows what looks like. She can walk into a building and know you do not want to live in here, that you're going to have this problem, that problem. And so she went and found the apartment. We looked online and she went and looked for us, and we did it all online, and we knew it was temporary, but it had gardens. And when she was walking there, right as they were about to go up the stairs to what was going to be our apartment, they saw a king snake. And she turned to the guy and she says, "Oh, they'll take it." Because we did had a whole nature area where the javelina would come, and we had this big wash in the back. So we were in nature in an apartment, which I thought was pretty cool, because we're not apartment style people, but it was like, that's a good sign, because they go after the rattlesnakes and they go after all the little vermin things. So,
Would rather have a mongoose, just personally.
oh my gosh, mongoose. That's so funny. I was just looking at pictures of mongoose the other day. Yeah, mongoose are like badgers, man. They're crazy. They Mongoose can bite.
Not monkeys, mongoose.
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
Mongoose,
okay. You
like
mongoose,
a
you said monkey.
mongoose. Yeah, they bite. So do monkeys,
Yeah. Yeah.
baboons. But yeah, yeah, no. But anyway, yeah, let's get
I love it. Like you and I never start, like we
stop.
never do a straight line. We always do these little zips, and it
Yeah,
always
maybe
really involves animals of some kind.
I know, but here it is. Like, so when we die, I wonder if we're going to take any detours. Like, our soul's going to go, wait, she didn't go here yet. Let's go over here real quick, because we have that 72-hour window. Isn't there like a 72-hour crossing when we die too?
Yeah. Well, that's what I've heard. You know, what's interesting is I did a talk on um, how some of the strange things that happen when people die, and that it's just not that it happens often enough that you can't just explain it away.
Mm-hmm.
And there was a doctor who said he went out and talked to a nurse, and I was watching a TED talk, and he said he had walked out and said to the nurse, well, he's doing really well. I think he's going to be here for another 5 or 6 months. And the nurse said, oh no, he's going to be gone in a couple of days. And he went, well, like, I'm the doctor and I can tell you that he's doing okay. And the nurse said, no, he was talking to his mother. And his mother had died. And he said, well, I don't think that's a proven thing for determining when someone's going to die. And she said, okay, fine. Just ignored him. He was the doctor. He thought he knew better. And of course, the guy died 2 days later. And it is now something that happens often enough that when people start talking to their dead relative and they can see them and have those conversations. So is it just, they can explain it away in science and say, as the brain deteriorates, it goes into this blah, 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 blah. But a lot of times, I think there's a veil. I think there's not to weird people out too much, but I think that there's so much that we don't understand about end of life and what happens afterwards and who's, if we can actually converse with people, if their souls are still around, like who knows? So
I think you can. I think you can because we've had some interesting incidents in our life, and we should do a whole show on the afterlife. We should definitely do one because I think that's part of the fear is that people don't know, are they, someone going to hold your hand? Do you beam up? How fast are we going? Do we go through the sky? I mean, really. And then the fear of actual hell. So I think there's that. If you've done some bad things in your life and you really feel like you're going to burn in hell, then you need to, go do whatever you need to do with your spirituality to fix that as fast as you can. But the whole crossing over, like I can't wait for that. I'm not ready to go, so please, not yet. But I find that fascinating as all can be because we've done a lot of shows with mediums, psychics, and I believe we have all these extra senses because your gut instinct is one of them. That tells you yay or nay. Something makes you scared. Again, that's the fear, but the fear is telling you something is up, right?
yeah.
So I think that is one of those instincts. So one friend of ours is a medium, and we had just met her, and this was before we all became friends. And she could see Nancy's brother. And she said, there's this guy, because Nancy was like, this is bull, this is all baloney. She was like, if ever there's any kind of intuition stuff, it comes to me to tell her, and then she tells me, and then it happened, and then she goes, oh, so that's how it has to happen. So, but this came through for this lady, Linda, and she's sitting there, and she says, there's this guy that running and jumping and doing these springs like this. And this is pre-Google. There was no knowing about our history, our family history. No one knew at this point what had happened. Well, her brother was a gymnast. He was like the top gymnast in California and had
Wow.
been recently murdered in Florida. So, and he made gymnastic gear. That's what he was doing. And it was him. That it was so plain as day, and he said things that only she would know. And so you couldn't doubt it because there's no way, like things I don't even know that those two used to say to each other as brother and sister. So that's
Wow.
weird. So there's stuff like that that you cannot doubt. Like
I know that when I was with my dad, it was really interesting how the energy in the room completely changed. It was like going through, I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone. Like when he passed, all of a sudden you could feel this complete
energy.
change in energy. And it felt like someone had exited the room.
Well, they say that I listened to a podcast with Bonnie Raitt, Julie Louis Dreyfus, and Bonnie Raitt, and they were both talking about their death of their father, and you're supposed to go open a window so that their soul can go out. And they were talking about that, this whole thing about it, go open the window. You've trapped him in. Open the window. It's fascinating. You've got to go listen to that podcast. You like that podcast?
He's still in that room, I guess. That was 20 years
Yes.
ago.
Oh, he's coming back to get you. He's going to haunt you. See, but that's the other thing is like,
my
don't
dad's
you?
way of haunting me would be to tell bad dad jokes in my ear. So
Yeah.
I'd going,
Oh, that's cool though. That's cool. I think being able to haunt people would be cool. That's, Nancy wants to do that for sure. She has a list,
of people she wants to haunt.
Oh, sure. I'm sure
Okay.
she'll probably haunt you.
Well, I would actually like that because I think Nancy, like you and Nancy and I get along so well
Mm-mm.
that if it was kind of uh, it wouldn't even be a joke. It would just be a line that was said in such a way that you'd have to you'd have to get it because she has a really sophisticated sense of humor. So you'd kind of have to listen to it, and then it's like but bump, and then you'd have to
Yep.
figure out.
Or she'll give us margaritas.
Oh, okay, I'd like that. I'd like
I'd
that.
like
You
that too.
get
She
back
can do
to.
that.
I was going to say I'll be back in Savannah probably in November. So, are you
That
going to
could
be
happen.
around then?
Oh, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. We have to have
yeah,
a reunion.
yeah,
Margarita, see, this is what we talk about on these end of life shows, but this is the thing. Don't let people and things in life that are important go by. People
yeah.
and experiences, not things,
And
you know?
you know, all of us have. I have this belief too that somehow all of those relationships that are fraught, and I've got a couple that
We all do.
cause me some sleepless nights. What I've learned is that you have to let go of them now because just because you're dying doesn't mean that someone's going to go, okay, well, I'm going to make your last blah, blah, blah peaceful. And everything's going to be tied up in a nice bow. Everything's going to be really nice. If there's something that isn't working, find peace with it now.
You know what? And this is okay. This is really fascinating about that because I know there's people who do like clear your soul, clear your energy,
Yeah.
right? So it goes beyond Reiki and everything, though that does this, right? But I think if you don't make peace, that there is genetic stuff, energy that follows through from genetic, like it goes down through people because there hasn't been closure. And I think it's us women who do it more. I'm not sure. But then when guys get in, look at the Hatfields and McCoys, you know, that was insane. That was like one of the best shootouts in the world over family drama. So that stuff can come down if you haven't closed it. So that gets woo woo for people. I know. But they say genetically stuff happens. You have like some weird, you meet someone sometimes and you go, oh, I do not like that person. And the person, there's nothing bad about them. They're not like some evil person. They're not mean. They're not out to get you or do anything.
Yeah.
And all it is you may know someone in your past that looks like them and did something negative to you or you didn't like them. You know what I mean? So you can end up disliking people just by previous experiences instead of going, okay, that was a bad experience and still being open. You can have this preconceived thing. So it's kind of like that.
Well, you know that I work as a facilitator and an instructor and a speaker,
Mhm.
and you go on reviews, and that's a lot of times how you get your next contract.
Yeah.
If you have all these, I can tell you that I'm a good facilitator. It's something I'm really comfortable. I've been doing it for years. I know my reviews are solid because I love to do it and I'm
You're
good
good.
at it.
She's the
There's
trust
always
architect.
yeah, but there's always someone. So, if the top mark is 5, I can have 20 people in the classroom. 17 will give me a 5, and there'll be a couple that will give me a 4, which is still good, but there's always 1 or 2 that will give you a 2, a 1 or a 2 or a 3. And it has nothing to do with you. It
And you have
has,
to, oh, it's
you
so hard
could
to
look
learn that.
like their um Aunt Norma, who they hated and spanked them when they were 5, like you don't know. And so exactly that, you just have to go, because I used to come home and I talked to my husband, Rick, and he'd say, how did it go? And I'd say, oh, it was okay. Some people really hated me. And he'd go through and he'd say, 2, you had 25 people.
And why do we focus on the two, right? We
Yeah.
all do this. Somebody
Yep.
said, it's like I have a friend who is a business coach. And she said, for all of us who get hung up with this review stuff, because it happens to everyone everywhere. And, I just recently had to block people off of one of our Facebook groups because they were attacking another person on there. And I'm like, this is not the rules of the group was kindness and courteous. Ugh. Be kind
Courtesy.
and courteous. Don't
Yeah.
be rude. Don't be disrespectful. I'll kick your butt. We don't do that. It just is not
Yeah.
accepted in any of our spheres. And so, and they just, I mean, it was insane. And they joined the group to go after this person. It's not actually one of our regular group members. So
What was
this,
interesting is Betty White, who was just like was known to be one of the sweetest, kindest people around. There were people who hated her because they thought she was falsely cheerful.
oh my God. See, that's crazy. So here's the thing. If you get hung up on reviews and this ugliness of all this stuff, which honestly, things do happen. And if you don't get any resolve through a company, that's a whole other show. But when you keep getting nothing on the other end and you're trying to make a complaint and say, hey, this was a wrongdoing, and you get nothing, well, you are like pushing the people to attack you on social media because that's the only place you can direct it any way you want if you're the company in question, right?
Yeah.
But to deal with the reviews, she says, keep a folder of all the positive reviews. Whenever this happens, because I don't even want anything less than the 5. That's just you know. And Nancy's always the one telling me, Lisa, there's always people who'll just do it out of doing it because they think you shouldn't be, you know, have top marks. That you need to learn a life lesson that it's not always perfect, and they don't want you to think that you're perfect in what you do. So they're going to knock you down just because of that, because they feel that they got a God complex. So anyway, her friend says you take down all the positive reviews, you keep them in a folder, however you want to do it, screenshot it, whatever, and go and read them. Just go and read them. Every time someone's rude, go and read all the positive ones and go, why am I stuck on this? Read, and especially if you have them over years, so you can see all of them, not just a few. Because even if it's fresh, you go like, what? Go into your history of positive reviews. It's really
Yeah.
important.
And so I'm going to bring this back to
Well done.
and I'm looking at my hair and going, what the heck is going on with this? Anyways, bring it back to the end of life. And that's not the time to go through all of the things that you regret. That's
Yeah,
not
no.
the time when you say, oh, I shoulda, coulda, woulda done all of this. It's not the time to focus on the people that you haven't, like those. Make the final days as peaceful as possible.
Beautiful.
Surround yourself with beauty and love and music and things that make your heart calm.
Mm.
Because that's how like there's the time to be fearful, and it's not just as you're exiting. That's the time to just bring peace and love and joy and remembering all of the things that you did that were positive in the world.
Exactly.
It's having that book full of good reviews. That's where I'm bringing it to. You look at
Well
all the
done. Oh, you did good, girl. You did good. No, but you're really right, because if you think about it, life is not a dress rehearsal, right? So you
yeah.
get in it, you're in it. That's your resume. And what happens if we do have to go up and say, "Hey, you're going to let me into heaven at the pearly gates?" You better have all of that stuff in your head about how good you are, because you may have to have you may have to get a job on the other side.
Yeah.
So you better remember your resume of all the good stuff you've done in your head, because that's what they make movies and TV shows. Like they show you, like, oh, you did so good here, but this is where you screwed up.
Yeah.
What I mean?
There was a movie with Meryl Streep. This is like, oh, so many years ago. And I just remember a scene where she had gone to heaven. And she knew it was heaven because she could eat whatever she wanted.
Oh,
And there was, like, we were talking about diet, but she said, someone asked her, like, how many bowls of ice cream have you had? And she went, I can't count because there's no calories in any of
oh,
the
wasn't
food that.
that Dead Again? Dead Again.
Was that called Dead Again?
I think so. And Bette Midler, and I don't know, but I think I know. And Dead Again, and Goldie Hawn and Meryl Streep. I got it wrong. All
I
right,
don't,
but anyway.
Yeah,
We'll Google
anyways,
that later. Yeah. But yeah, bring the ice cream. Bring it.
yeah. And no ice cream headaches.
Mm.
Yeah.
Oh,
No upset
rum and
stomach.
raisin,
Yeah. Oof.
Rocky Road.
Burnt caramel,
Mm. See, so
salted caramel.
take your joys. So when you go to the next place, it's in your heart and your soul. You carry that with you so that
Yeah.
when you go in, because if you have to like stand up and say, I am good, let me in, you better have it at the top of your head. So if you have that, then your fear goes away because you're prepared. See,
Yeah.
because if you don't know, I mean, maybe we do go play pearly gates, right? So if we're going to play pearly gates, I want to be prepared. I'm a Virgo. I must be prepared. I must have all my stuff in. So I will memorize it so that when I get there, I can just, you know, have it ready.
So, do you know Cocopelle? Have
Oh
you
yeah,
heard
the
of?
Cocopelli. Yeah, the Southwest. There's a symbol of fertility and a symbol. It's like the jokester also.
Yes, and he is like he usually has a flute, and
Flute.
he is the one who usually lets helps people cross the river, because that's another symbol of death, is you're crossing the river, and Cocopelli takes you to the river so that you can go across.
Mm,
And so the whole symbolism of your the music, and you think of
fun.
in New Orleans, when they have, as they're taking people to the grave site,
They
they're
party.
playing very funeral music, and it's very sad, and there's this whole thing. Once the person has been buried, then they start playing the jazz and the music, because now their soul has gone to a place that makes them
Hmm.
happy.
You can play Freebird
Yeah.
for all those people when I had a band and they just went play Freebird. I'm like, that's for when you die. Like as you're dying, open the window and play Freebird. But but that I think it's cool that release part of it, you know. So I think if we look at it more on this positive, like we're going on the next adventure, then it
Yeah.
takes a little fear away and be prepared. If you're prepared, you're not as freaked out. I mean, I look at, how many people freak out and they're going to travel. It's like, oh my gosh, I need to get this done. I need to get that. And everyone gets in a tiz because they're not going to be home for a couple of weeks. We see this as we pet sit across the country. They're not going to be home for a couple of weeks. So it's like, oh, this, that. And really, if you lose your luggage, just go get another shirt. You know, you shouldn't be, unless you're taking real valuables, which is not always a smart thing when you travel, but it's the same thing. You're going on a journey, be prepared, pack what you want to pack into your heart and soul,
Yeah.
because that's where you're going. So I think it's such
You
a
and
fun
Nancy
conversation.
don't have everything, like all of your possessions are have to be packed in a suitcase, because you throw them in the back of the truck or the back of the
Yeah.
car.
Yep.
And
Yep.
so if it's like all of those things that you probably thought were really important at some point, you found out when you gave them away, it really didn't hold a lot of energy. It was like, okay, that wasn't so hard.
We still pay for storage, but it's like a 9x5 is what we got down to for two people. And it's our art.
Wow.
Nancy's paintings, her slides of Africa, like all our photography, which is like 20,000 or 80,000. We don't even know. It's in the tens of thousands of that. And my musical writing. So it's stuff and some mementos, like her magazines from South Africa. So you can't really put any price tag on it, but our rate of storage keeps going up by $20 every few months. And so now it's getting to be a little ridiculous. And we keep going, okay, we need to digitize stuff when we go to Tucson. And it's like at the same time, these are priceless things. So you definitely want to keep them, but it's kind of like we're living without them, but they hold some value. So it's weird, but you can get down to minimalist living is the best. You
Yeah.
just have so much less to worry about, you know?
My husband's mother was a hoarder. And
Oh,
so
yeah.
she died, the things that we had to get rid of, it was astounding to me, the things that she thought were important to keep.
Mm.
And you realize that, it had nothing to do with the object. It had nothing to do with what
That's why
she
I
got.
say it's all
It
about
was
the
all
experience.
around her feeling of not enough.
Huh. Yeah, people, that's everybody does that. I mean, that goes towards addictions. And
Yeah.
not feeling enough. And that's why people, a lot of times people have addictions. It's a way to numb out or to feel more enough because you're numbing out something. And sometimes you don't know what it is until someone helps you, when you get help for that. But it isn't about things. Life is not about things.
No.
It's not. It's not. So, not saying everybody do what Nancy and I do, but take a look around. I mean, are you spending more time making more money versus spending time with your family? Now, if you want to make more money so you can travel with your family, that's a different thing. You're creating memories, or building a home like what you have. You're at your dream home now. It's like amazing to do. That's an accomplishment, that's a journey, and that's comfort, right?
Yeah.
But
We're
there's
never leaving
yeah,
here unless our feet are going
yeah.
first.
Well, and you've got a backyard where you can bury yourself. So
Actually,
compost.
yeah, I found the plot. I found the place where we can put our dogs that I don't want to leave
Yeah,
us anytime soon. It's in the forest and it's next to a rock, a huge rock that I can sit on and kind of look over them, and it's shaded. So they'll love it because they love playing in the forest. You'll love
that's
it when you come and visit.
yeah, we'll have to cross over boundaries. Aren't we gonna have to do
When you're talking about crossing over, you have to say to people that we're not talking about you dying. You're talking about crossing the 49th
yeah.
parallel and going from the US to Canada.
But here's the cool thing I think about maybe when we're dying, that we are able to zoom anywhere we want. So I kind of feel like dying may give us this opportunity to do travel our style, like easy, float around, you
Astro
know.
travel.
Yeah, man, it could be really cool.
Wouldn't that be cool? You just think of a spot and you can go there.
Exactly. You go, hey, I want to go to India today. All right, let's go. Let's go to the Taj Mahal. I've never been there. You've probably been there. Let's
Yeah.
go. I've never been there. Okay, let's go. And you know what? You don't have to wait in line. You don't have to do anything to get into places. You can go to whatever rock concert you want. Maybe you can even go backwards in time so I can really see Janis Joplin and Jimi Hendrix live. I mean,
Yeah.
come on. It could be
I met
really
her when
cool.
I was 17.
Oh, I
I
remember you
did.
telling me that. That's crazy. That's not fair.
Yeah,
It's
Festival
not
of
fair.
Death in Calgary. Yep.
Oh,
She was
that's so
pretty
cool.
stoned. She was pretty,
Really
yeah,
shocking.
yeah, I
Well,
know.
and there's the whole 27 club that always got me thinking, in my teens and going 20s, like, how long are we going to all last? And then I went past 27 and realized, no, you are not Janis Joplin. So you're still alive, but, and you're a little bit cleaner on the drinking drug thing, a lot more, definitely on the drugs. But
Yeah,
I'll tell you, well, and I don't travel around with a bottle of whiskey, but I do have my wine and I do like whiskey once in a while. I do, but
yeah.
not like what she was doing. But in just the fear part, I look at it and coming to the end of life, it's life here. And I look at it as this is going to be a next adventure. And when we start talking about this, like you could go anywhere, we don't know. But if you think about all the possibilities that it could be, it sounds pretty darn exciting to me. I
Yeah,
mean, really. And there's some people up there or down there, around there, wherever they are, I want to go hang out with that I really miss that we didn't get to say goodbye to. We don't, and there is something about that closure
yeah,
part. And I miss them and I talk to them. I talk to them and think, all right, you know, I'm not weird, but
like, but there's that whole thing, like when you see something, or for me, there's times when I'll see something that I find really funny that I know that someone that I loved and has passed would see really funny. All of a sudden they're
they're
there.
there. Exactly.
And like I'll give a nod and say, "Oh my God, Dad, that's a joke you would have told."
And I bet you they're there because I don't like Nancy and I will have it in unison on certain people, but that means because we both know that person and all of that. So it is unison. But I don't know. I feel like if you can feel it, their presence there and hear them, that why not? Why not? Who
Yeah,
says
maybe.
that possibility is not there? You
Yeah.
know? So
But
I say
I know
look at
that
it
you would be the
excited.
same as me. For me, sometimes it's the pets that have passed that I want around me.
Oh yeah, yeah.
My dogs.
Oh, can you imagine how many pets like in Nancy and I's lifetime now? Like how many? I mean, there's lots of animals, lots of animals to hang out with. Ooh,
That to me is heaven, being able to just hang out.
and we may not have to pick up poop when we go there, you
Oh
know,
yeah, it's like being able to eat as much as you want.
and
They
not
never have
pee,
to
not,
poop.
and we don't have to. I mean, if we're worried about it, think about it. Our last, ablution happens on Earth, and then we go, and we don't have to go again. I mean, it may be that cool. So I'm just
Yeah,
saying, let's look at the positives.
yeah. And make sure that if there's some things that you
You're
need to
making me
take
want to,
care of,
I feel like dying now.
yeah. Oh,
It's sounding so good on the other side. There's a taco bar, a margarita bar, endless beaches, dogs, cats running free, horses running
yeah.
free,
Oh my gosh.
monkeys. Everybody's happy.
And the
It's
monkeys don't bite.
it's called utopia. So let's
Yeah.
think about that. You want a utopian society. We don't need to build them here in the way that they did, but we could just have it there by going. So I think, could you imagine all the books we can read? We didn't have time to read that you wanted to read. Just being able to really enjoy life that way.
Hey, and we get to meet the people who wrote the books.
Exactly. I bet you we could.
And so instead of reading Moby Dick, which I had to admit that I struggled reading through the whole thing, we could just sit down and
And hang
like
out with him.
yeah, listen to him and say, could you just tell me the story? Like sort of tighten it up a little.
Oh, I'm sure he's gonna like you.
Okay, maybe I'll find another author.
Yeah, you gotta, yeah. I think, well, everyone, don't be scared. Let's have fun. We'll party on the other side, dude. So,
Yeah.
Lee, it's
Not to
always
be
fun.
irrelevant, but yeah,
Yeah,
figure out what you're scared of. It's not usually death, it's all the stuff that surrounds it.
yeah. I love this conversation today for sure. So we'll get into more fun stuff next month. Everyone keep up with Lee at souljourneydoula.com, and of course us at bigglenradio.com. We're here every third Thursday. Thanks, Lee.
Thanks, Lisa.